Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, we from group 3. We will discuss about teaching reading to young learners. Before we start, I will introduce my friend. The first is Eva Maria Wibowo and me Maulida Fortuna Usma, and then Ramadhani Sazali Sira, and the last is Aska Sifaul Nikmah. Okay, what is reading? Reading is a set of skills that involves making sense and deriving meaning from the printed words. Jadi, membaca harus memahami dan memperoleh makna dari bacaan yang kita baca. And the next is three different elements which impact reading by Pedagogy and Boyle. The first is the child background knowledge, latar belakang pengetahuan anak. And the second is the child linguistic knowledge of the target language, pengetahuan linguistik anak tentang bahasa target. And the last is the strategies or technique the child use to tackle the text, strategi atau teknik yang digunakan untuk memahami teks. For example, if a child is going to learn how to decode letters, the child must understand what different written symbols represent. In some languages such as English, Spanish, Arabic, and Korean, a certain symbol represents a specific letter. These languages are known as alphabetic language, or that can be concluded alphabetic language, a letter or combination of letter and symbol to represent each speech sound in the language. For example, in Korean, a symbol like this represents the sound ya. In other language, a certain symbol represents an entire word. For example, in China, the character like this represents the word mother. And the next is concept and skill shown to transfer from first language literacy to second language literacy by Dias, Rico, and Witt. The first is print has meaning. Yang kita baca harus memiliki arti atau makna. And then reading and writing are used for various purposes. Membaca dan menulis digunakan untuk berbagai keperluan. And then concept about print, such as book orientation concept, how to hold, to turn page, cara memegang, membalik halaman, and then directionally, left to right, top button, arah kiri ke kanan, atas ke bawah, and then letters, nama huruf, huruf kecil, huruf besar, and word, terdiri dari huruf, space mark boundaries, and then knowledge of the text structure, and then use of semantic and syntactic knowledge, pembelajaran tentang makna, and then use of cues to predicate meaning, menggunakan isyarat untuk memprediksi makna, and then reading strategies, hipotesis atau jawaban sementara, constructing meaning, membangun makna, and the last is sebagai pembaca harus percaya diri. And we move about decoding. In decoding, we must recognize the symbol that form or make up, or I can conclude decoding process is a key skill to become a good reader is the ability to sound out words you don't know. Jadi, decoding process adalah keterampilan atau kemampuan melafalkan kata-kata yang tidak diketahui. For example, the letter pattern tion sound like shen yang ada di akhir banyak kata. Knowing that pattern can help the child decode words they haven't seen before, like word option or caption. And then the next is comprehension. According Ederson, the aim of reading is comprehension. Jadi, membaca harus memahami dan memperoleh makna.
Third, background to teaching of reading. There are two reasons that people read. First, reading for pleasure, and second, reading for information. But there are four backgrounds to teaching of reading. First, reading for pleasure, by listening and reading bedtime stories. Bedtime stories are wonderful because children see themselves as getting double treat. They get affection from their parents and they get some pleasure stories. As a teacher, encourage parents to read to their children as much as possible, even use child native language, because it can make children carry over into the child language development. For example, if a student now they can get pleasure from reading stories in her own language, they may able to make the connection that reading in general can provide pleasure, and they will interesting to reading. Second, reading for information. Reading instruction. We often read something to get some information. For example, we read some historical book to get some information about history. But to young learner, to get information from reading, we are able to try to invite them to make something new. Maybe we invite the young learner to make a model airplane kit. So they will read a book about model airplane instruction, and also they will get information about how to make an airplane kit. Third, vision problems. It means they need glasses or not. Some students may be helpful eyesight. When students complain headache after reading or has trouble reading from the board, they will difficult to decipher unclear symbols in English. So they should be tested to see if they need glasses or not. Fourth, configuration. Look the picture on right. Configuration in set make up of the letters within a word. Configuration of block letters is more difficult to read. It's better use lowercase letters because it's easier to make out of the shape of the word. Pay careful attention to the way some parts of the word go above and others go below the line. Fourth, the development of reading skills. Some of these activities on kindergarten might look as if they are not educational. However, activities such as doing art projects with patterns, listening to and talking about stories, playing with words, and learning the symbols that represent words all help children in their quest to learn how to read. As a teacher of young learner, you want to make sure that children perceive reading as a tool. Children need to be taught to see reading as a key that will open many different doors. There are two ways to develop the young learner's reading skill. First, we can develop the reading skill of young learners by phonics-based instruction. The purpose of phonics instruction is to teach beginning readers that print letters represent speech sound heard in words. Hellman 2002. Phonics-based instruction is easier to make the student develop their reading because they will directly to say the phonics than the letters. We don't say C, a C, but say that C can be k, or us based on the word. For example, k, as in cat, and as in come, as, as in certain. Phonics is the teaching of sound as part of decoding, and phonics-based instruction concerned with teaching children that letters can be put together to form words. One of the problems with phonics is that teachers and their young learners can become overly focused on decoding and not concerned enough with meaning. There are effective and ineffective phonics instruction. Effective phonics instruction. First, substance a break pace. Don't too fast but slow but sure. Matches what is read with concept and strategies being taught. Engage children in activities that are relevant and purposeful. Maybe we can read by introduce the name of fruit or animal. includes writing a significant component. It means we can invite the young learner to try write the word after reading, emphasize chunks and patterns in words. Make sure the children read by correct chunks. Example, don't say vegetable, but say vegetable. Differentiation listen based on individual children's needs, based on their age and their ability. Engage children in decision making and hands-on activities. Example, read how to make airplane and after that make airplanes together. Exposes children to a variety of texts. Invite them to read some texts from different genres, example, fable, myth, etc. Integrates what is learned in a variety of authentic reading and writing texts. And here, an effective phonics instruction. First, dominate literacy instruction all children. We don't pay attention to age and ability of children. And emphasize the memorization of rules. It's meant to force the children without giving flexibility. Emphasize words in isolation. Basis listen or worksheet. Has meant many heavy homework. Uses decodable text as the primary source in reading. Decodable is text that children can read using their phonics knowledge. For example, of decodable. K, t, cat, cat. So, children spell by phonics. Sometimes we need use the alphabet spelling to enrichment student knowledge. Takes up a lot of instructional time every day. Place a heavy emphasis on phonics beyond what children need. Requires children to master phonics before learning to read. Literature-based approach. Literature-based approach is designed to help children develop an appreciation and enjoyment of literature while at the same time developing literacy skills. For example, of literature-based approach in class. Teacher can invite the class, whole class, to have same book to reading, and students are divided in book club. 3 to 5 students, and each group reads some book. After that, students do common discussion to find the characters, setting, problem, and solution. Okay, the next presentation will be delivered by Dani.
Okay, and number 5 is technique and activities. There are many different reading and pre-reading activities that can help children develop reading skill in English. There is 9 things. One is phonics. One of the easiest way to begin phonics instruction is by introducing sound and letters that are associated with specific noun. And number 2 is predictable stories and pattern book. The predictable stories contain repetitive phrase and predictable language. Predictable storybooks, also called pattern book, contain illustration that can help to clarify or support the word, sentence, or pattern that is repeated in the text. And next, sight word. Sight words are high frequency words children can recognize on sight without having to decode the letter. And next is names. Children's names can be sight words. Children enjoy reading their own name. And an alternative way to call attendance is to print each child name on a different card. Next, print-rich environment. As a teacher, you should try to create a print-rich environment in the classroom. The print should have meaning for e-learners. You should include as much environmental print as possible. Ensure that to include items such as the following. And learning center are placed within a classroom where child can work alone, in pair, or in small group. And next, language experience approach. The language experience approach is used to help native English speaking, ESL or EFL. And next is own word. In New Zealand, and use a number of techniques including children own word to help young learner acquire English literacy skill. And next is questioning technique. Since comprehension is the aim of reading, you should provide students with focused instruction on comprehending written text.
Material 6. Reading in the classroom. Reading can easily be integrated into any program for teaching English to young learners. The amount of time you devote to reading and development of reading skills will depend upon the goal of your program. Regardless of the English language reading objective, it is important to remember to include reading for pleasure and reading for information. And the first is a variety of strategies. Children can be taught a variety of reading strategies before you begin any reading lesson, or even mini reading lesson. Help children use context clues to determine meaning. When using course books, be sure to direct children to look for the environmental print. For example, if you are looking at a scanned page of the inside of a school, you might want to point out the picture of the library. You could ask children, what is inside the library? You might want to also help children use phonics skills to decode the specific word, such as the sign library. At the very least, direct students to pay attention to the word library in their books. Encourage children to look at the context and figure out what the different signs say. And the second is innate learners. One of the things that is so nice about children's picture books is that the pictures are often very engaging. It is important to draw children's attention to interesting and imaginative illustration as a way to make reading a pleasurable experience. Carefully worded questions can help children become interested in the story. The conclusion. In this chapter, decoding and comprehension were presented as they relate to reading and reading instruction. The two main purposes of reading were discussed: reading for pleasure and reading for information. The chapter also provided a background of the teaching of reading, which include the distinction between decoding and reading, the use of authentic materials including environmental print as well as material which are intended for ESL and EFL learners were also discussed. Information on how to use a variety of techniques to teach reading were provided. Okay, so that's all the material from group 3. If you have any question, you can asking with us. And thank you for watching.